Hello everyone, my name is Henderson. I'm kind of a person that wears a bunch of different hats, a bunch of different skills. I'm a wildlife photographer. I'm also a moose ecologist, a research assistant professor. I work at Home Depot. I like sailing, a lot of other activities. And today we're going to take a look at my Bristol 35, which is my current home and sailboat. And I'm currently anchored out here on Boca Ciega Bay, which is located in St. Petersburg, Florida, right near the suburb of Gulfport. I enjoy living on the water because of the serenity, the sunsets, the sunrises, the privacy, and just I like living on the water because of the sense of independence, the privacy, the challenge, the ability to pretty much live outside and in community with the wildlife and the animals and the environment and the weather, which sometimes can be a bit extreme. We've had 3 hurricanes this year, and that was a bit extreme with a lot of losses that were incurred here on the bay, myself included. But this video is a tour of my boat, and I recently brought the boat from the east coast of Florida to the west coast of Florida, roughly St. Augustine area, down to Stewart, and then across the Okeechobee Waterway, and then up from Fort Myers to the St. Petersburg area. So the boat is not exactly in pristine shape right now. Well, it's a 1969, so it's a long way from pristine, and I bought it in very poor condition, structurally good condition, but mechanically and cosmetically somewhat poor condition. But let's take a look at what we've got here, and this will give us a baseline that we're going to start working on the boat from. And we'll start here on the exterior, on deck, and then we'll take a look at the exterior hull, and then we'll go down below and take a look at the accommodations. So let's get started. So we'll start up here at the bow. You can see I've got an anchor that's right here on the bow on a good sturdy anchor roller and a roller furling. That's this sail that is rolled up. That's called a roller furling. And then, of course, I've got teak rails, which desperately need some attention and will be getting some attention here in the near future. A couple of chocks here on the boat in order to tie up lines, and these 2 lines that are tied up here are going to the mooring buoy that's out front. And then we've got a couple of anchor hawse pipes to be able to put anchor line down. And you can see the chain to the anchor is going into one of those hawse pipes. Here over on the starboard side is a water fill that goes to a water tank that is up under the V-berth. Now let's turn around and take a look at the back side of the boat. Okay, so this is the cabin that rises up from the sole of the boat, and these 2 lines that you see on either side are called jib sheets, and they help to control this front sail, which is called a jib. And you can see this has nice wide decks to be able to walk down, and a good sized cabin to be able to live in. There's a good hatch to be able to open up and get some circulating air. And then there's a couple of these ventilators that are right over the area of the bathroom to be able to get some ventilation in there. And you see there's some standing rigging here. That is these turnbuckles and this stainless steel line. That's called standing rigging. And then right next to it is another water fill. And then you see ports on the side of the cabin. These are opening ports, some of them at least. And we've got stanchions that help hold the lifelines. And there's a block there that's holding the jib sheet. And then we come back here and I have my solar panel just kind of cropped up here on the side of the boat. That's eventually going to go on the stern rail back there, but that's another one of the jobs that I just haven't gotten to yet. You can see the cable for the solar panel is already installed on the stern rail, so that job is coming up pretty soon. You've got a couple of more cowl vents here on the back, and that helps to ventilate the lockers back here. You've got a lazarette locker, and then this contraption with the block and tackle goes to the main boom. It is called the main sheet, and you can see it has quite a few turns on the blocks, giving us a lot of mechanical advantage. Back in the back, we have another stay. That would be the back stay. And then coming over here on the port side, those lines that are hanging up there, one of those goes to the jib furler to be able to furl up the sail, and the other line, the heavier line, is the main sheet. And then down here in the cockpit, we have a nice steering wheel with a binnacle compass, and this cup holder I use to hold my GPS, VHF radio, and various things like that. We have a couple of winches, a really old style of winch over here for one of the jib sheets, and we have another one over here underneath the solar panel for the other jib sheet, and then we have another old style winch back here in the back for the main sheet. I'm hoping soon to be able to replace those with self-tailing winches, but that's just another one of the jobs that is on the to-do list. We also have these teak combings that desperately need some attention with sandpaper and varnish, and that's another one of the jobs that's coming up. And then looking from the back of the cockpit forward, you can see we have the engine controls up here on the cabin front, along with a compass and an old knot log, or what would tell us our speed, that's not functioning. So that's going to get replaced with something else. And then this opening here is the opening for the companionway. And there's a set of 3 boards called hatch boards that go into this area to help close that off when you have big following seas and whatnot. Now let's go ahead and walk up the port side of the boat, and you can see immediately here one of the stanchions and a pulley on there that holds the furling line. And then here on the cabin top, we have a boat hook and a place to hold on. We have another water fill right here on the side deck, and some more standing rigging, and so on. Here at the base of the mast, we have a cobweb of wires that includes the VHF antenna wire and the steaming light wire. That's all going to get replaced here pretty soon because it's pretty old and cracked, and I don't like the way it is fed through there. But for right now, that's what we have. And then we're coming back up to the bow again. Here's another stanchion with a pulley with the furling line going through it again. And that completes the deck tour of the boat. Now let's get down in the dinghy and we'll go around the boat and take a look at the outside of the boat. So here she is from the outside. Name of the boat is Orion. Let's turn the dinghy on and go around the boat. Bristols are known for having overhangs. You can see the rear of the boat is out of the water. That's kind of a classic design. Hirschoff was the one that came up with that originally, I think. So you can see it's a beautiful boat from the exterior. Has really classic lines. I'm currently anchored on a mooring buoy here in the Boca Chica Bay area. And the reason you're not hearing a noisy outboard is because I've got a trolling motor on my dinghy. We'll go over how I have that set up here in a future video. It's all operated off a lithium-ion battery and a solar panel. So that's the exterior of the boat. Kind of a pretty boat. And the way you get to it is by taking your dinghy back and forth to shore. Okay, let's go down below and I'll show you what the interior looks like now. Okay, so we've come down the main companionway, and over here on the port side is the galley, and then on the starboard side is a chart table and an ice box, and here under the steps is where the engine is located. Let's take a closer look at these items. So the galley consists of a sink and some opening cabinets. This one big door opens up into the engine, and these 2 or 3 other doors over here are storage areas. And then we have some countertop with some opening hatches back there, and up under those hatches is the water heater. Not really very good storage, and I plan to redo that area and get rid of the water heater. But nonetheless, up here back behind the countertop is another storage area for condiments and whatnot. And then down below that is our swinging or gimbaled stove. This is an alcohol stove, and I'm planning to replace that with a propane stove here at some point. At some point, this boat had a stove and an oven, and it filled up this entire space here. This life sling is just stored down here because it's an extra storage area. I don't plan to put in a stove oven. I don't need an oven on my boat because I seldom ever use an oven, but I do plan to put in propane instead of alcohol. So this space will be made into a cabinet down below, and then there'll be a swing stove for propane up here on top. Now let's continue along the port side and go forward. So on the port side, or the left side of the boat, as you're looking at the bow, there's a dinette, and you can see it has a couple of seats on either side, and then some storage lockers back behind it. And this table is convertible. It will lay down and make into a full-size bed if you wish. I don't ever do that because I just don't need another bed. I live alone. And that's the way I prefer it. Down below the table is an area where I store my current projects, and that bag right there is some of the projects I'm working on. Underneath each of the seats is storage. You can see there's some drawer fronts on the front, and there's some cabinetry back in the back, and then this area back here also has some storage. Then we come to the back wall, and that black thing back there in the very corner is a fan. And then there's a light up there in the corner, and then we have a kerosene lantern. Coming right across, we have the door that goes into the bathroom, and then we come over to the starboard side. So here on the starboard side, we have a berth that a person can sleep in, or a sofa that you can sit on. And of course it has cabinets back behind it where you can store some of your items. And it also has some drawers and cabinets down below. Back behind the cabinets is another storage area, and that's currently filled up with projects that I'm working on. I always seem to have a project of some kind. Now let's come on around and take a look at the chart table and refrigerator. Okay, so this is the chart table and some storage back behind it. A pair of binoculars there. Back in the very corner is my foul weather gear for when it rains and whatnot. I can stay a little bit dry when I'm sailing. And then these 2 opening cabinets into the countertop is an ice box. Let's take a look at that. So you can currently see that I'm using my ice box as dry storage for various things because I don't usually use an ice box or a refrigerator. I live pretty much without those. Okay, so let's go up into the head or the bathroom area. So this is the head area and it needs a little work. There's some door fronts that go on this particular cabinet. And then we have a composting toilet here on this pedestal and a little storage cabinet right over here on the starboard side. When we go over to the port side, we have a sink and a handheld shower along with a hanging locker, paper towel holder, an opening window, and then this thing with the stainless steel thing on it is that cowl vent on the top of the cabin top that we saw. This wire that's hanging down here is the VHF wire that I'm in the process of working on. Now let's go up into the V-berth. So this is the V-berth area. You can see we have some cushions down here on the base, and we have some storage here. And that area up there with the doors is the anchor locker where you store your anchor rod and whatnot. There's also a new fan that I have installed up there, and that wire is kind of begging to be taken care of. But this is another one of the areas where it needs a little attention. And everything is getting a little bit of attention as I get to it. Here overhead, we have that big hatch that can open up and give us a lot of fresh air. And then we have a dirty overhead that really needs to be cleaned. But like I say, the V-berth is kind of low priority right now because it's up here and it's an area I'm not using. I'm sleeping there in the main cabin. And then eventually I will get up here and clean this up. We do have some storage here on the sides, on both the port and the starboard side. And then we also have some lights up here on the wall. And looks like a little puck light here that probably is due to be thrown away. And on the other side, a similar kind of light. So this area needs some attention, and it's going to be getting it here in the next couple of weeks. But right now, that just gives you an idea what it looks like. Down below the V-berth is another storage area, and there's also a water tank that's built into the area under the V-berth. Here in the main cabin, we have a couple of floorboards that you can take up and access the water tanks that are down below the floorboards. And then this particular step affair comes apart so you can access the engine. Let's take a look at that. So here we have the engine area and the access underneath the sink in the galley. This is a Yanmar 3GM20, which is a diesel engine. And you can see when you need to work on it, it does have some good access on one side, but the access under the sink is a bit limited. And so when you need to replace the starter, which we had to do on our trip from St. Augustine to St. Pete, that was up under the sink, and that was a lot of fun. We also have a battery that's located there right next to the engine, and we have a diesel filter that's mounted up there and various other contraptions that are all part of the diesel setup. So that is my 1969 Bristol 35 sailboat. I purchased this boat for $4,000 up in the St. Augustine area, and I've put probably $5,000 or $6,000 into trying to make it functional. About $3,500 of that went into the engine just to make it so it would run, and the rest of that money went into things like the steering and the steering controls and the shifter and various things like that. I expect when it's all said and done, I will have invested probably $15,000 to $20,000 plus a lot of sweat equity, and then the boat will be worth maybe $25,000 to $30,000 when it's all said and done. I'm not doing this as an investment. I'm doing this because this is my home and my sailboat, and it's what I love and it's what I enjoy. And I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you would, please give us that thumbs up icon, or like-a-roo as I like to call it. I'll be putting out videos that detail some of the projects that we're going to be doing here on the boat here in the near future. So if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you're welcome to. On our channel, we cover a variety of topics, so some things may not, be the videos that fit your fancy, but other ones may be very pertinent to you. And so I hope you find something that you like on our channel. I will see you again here very soon on Moose Henderson. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Now, what project can I do? I go to work today at 3 at Home Depot, so I have about 4 hours, and it'll take an hour and a half to ride the bus, so I have about 2.5 hours to do a project. Maybe I'll rest. Yeah, that sounds like a good project. I'll rest. You rest too. Goodbye.